tonight in this room, but if for those that's not been before, you want to drink a water, there's a water machine out there. There is a toilet to the left, and there's one downstairs if you so require it. Just before we formally start the meeting, I'd like to just acknowledge we had a young gentleman with us on the site visits yesterday, Darius. I think there's a possibility he might be watching tonight, and we do all of us wish Darius well in his future hopeful career within planning. It was lovely to have that young man with us doing his work experience. So I'd like to formally commence then tonight's planning committee, and we will first turn to the approval of previous minutes. Now there are two sets of minutes to be approved. The first set pertain the Farley Woods application. Got it now. Tuesday the 30th of June, and on that occasion I was in the chair. Would someone like to move those minutes first? Councillor Lees and Councillor Murphy. All those in favour, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. And then the second minutes to be approved, or if any member wishes to comment upon, was the meeting held on Tuesday the 14th of July. So my thanks to Councillor Sue Burfoot, the Vice Chair, who in fact chaired that particular meeting. Thank you very much, Sue. Would someone like to move, or is there anyone that wishes to comment on those minutes? So it's been moved by Councillor Dobbs, seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour of the minutes as a true and correct record of what there and thereon took place. Thank you. And I take it 2 abstentions and 2 abstentions. Thank you. Now, I'm taking it that the public participation, John, will take place with the applications in the normal way. So we're going to turn now to applications for determination. Oh, sorry. Does any member wish to declare at this point an interest? Councillor Sue Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. I am going to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 5.4, which is Derwent Treescapes. My son-in-law is employed by them, so I will be leaving the room.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any other interests any members wish to record? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll turn then now to applications for determination. And the first application we visited yesterday morning at Ashbourne. It pertains the Mayfield Road Cadet Hut, Mayfield Road, Ashbourne, and it is change of use, conversion and extension of an existing building to form a dwelling house. I'll ask, we have a number of speakers pertaining this. Can I first ask Barbara McCallick? Barbara, if you'd like to come to the front, and you will have 3 minutes at your leisure to, in your way, express what you would like to say to the planning committee. And is it the switch to the left or right, John? For the
My name's Barbara Mihowick. I'm a resident of Ashbourne and I'm a user of the footpath which this development will obstruct. I say I am a user of the path, but sadly, this is no longer the case. I cannot now make my way along this trail. Why is this? Well, when I last approached the site along the footpath from Mayfield Road, I found myself faced with a 5-bar gate and a similar one on my right, no way round. A sign informed me that it was private land, no public access or right of way. Thinking I may have made some mistake, I later tried to walk from the other direction, from the riverside path, only to meet Harris fencing blocking my way with a similar sign displayed. Attempting to find a route around the fence resulted in a gentleman appearing, telling me I could not pass. Why has this ancient path been blocked in this way? For decades or longer, people have used this path. It's marked on old maps, and even on Google Maps, it is noted as a continuation of Dark Lane. Now, Dark Lane, as some of you will know, is a road which currently meets Mayfield Road and appears to stop there. But it does not, in fact, stop. It continues on the other side as this ancient footpath. Dozens of people have contacted this council in the comments about the need to retain this historic path. It links the town centre with the allotments, the cemetery, the Aldi supermarket and more. In addition, Shrovetide football players make use of this path, and as a Shrovetide marshal, I have often seen the ball progress this way towards the Clifton goal. Having no footpath would very much hamper the players. As your officer's report states, quote, planning permission does not in itself authorise any person to obstruct a footpath or other right of way. And yet here we have the path already blocked. This leads one to be concerned about future activity on and around the path which might not comply with the above rule. I urge the authorities here to be vigilant during any building work that might take place to ensure the path is reopened and remains unobstructed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for speaking within time. And I think it's fair to say all of us that went on the site visit yesterday, particularly myself, it was the first time I'd been in that area. So we do fully understand what you were just expressing to the planning committee. Can I ask then another local resident, Sue Moore, please? Sue, I understand you are speaking also against the application.
Thank you, Chair. I need a moment just to swap glasses. So yes, my name is Sue Moore and I'm a resident of Ashbourne. I don't actually object to the creation of a dwelling on this land, but my objection is to the loss of the very valuable footpath which links the north of Ashbourne, the cemetery, the primary school, to the town centre, the hospital and the retail park. The path is very widely used by dog walkers, or it was used before it was blocked, dog walkers, school children and people generally wishing to walk around Ashbourne without using the local roads. The planning permission as submitted will permanently block the route of this path, and access has already been stopped by the applicants with new fencing at both ends. Councillors will have noted that there are approximately 45 registered objections on the planning portal to the loss of this path. I did note at section 731 of the officer's report to this committee, and it describes a newly created gate and stile as an additional access point to the neighbouring land and beyond. But I wanted to point out that a gate and a stile do not create a public right of way, even if the neighbouring landowner agrees to access. And if the landowner does not agree, which I understand is the case, then anybody using it would be committing trespass. So I was quite astonished to see the officer's report presenting this to councillors as an acceptable alternative to the existing path. Councillors will be familiar, section 31 of the Highways Act provides that where a way has been enjoyed by the public without interruption for 20 years, it is deemed to have been dedicated as a highway unless there is sufficient evidence to show otherwise. This path has been in use for more than 100 years and prima facie under the law it is already a highway. Last autumn I made an application to Derbyshire County Council for a definitive map modification order to record this path as a public right of way. This application is currently undergoing its statutory consultation period. I submit that granting permission for the application in its current form risks prejudicing the outcome of the statutory rights of way process. If the right of way is confirmed, then this committee will be in the rather embarrassing position of having facilitated the obstruction of an established public highway. The committee will also have disregarded paragraph 105 of the National Planning Policy Framework, which states that planning policies and decisions should protect and enhance public rights of way and access, and I believe should means mandatory, not optional. I am requesting, therefore, that the committee defers the application until the position regarding the public right-of-way has been officially determined. And if council is minded to approve it, to grant permission and not defer, then I'm requesting an enforceable condition that the development leaves the path unobstructed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments, Sue. And I'm going to call upon Councillor Clark, representing Ashbourne Town Council. And I understand, Councillor Clark, you're also speaking against the application. Welcome to Matlock, Councillor Clark.
Good evening, I guess. Okay, right. Okay, my name is Councillor Gustav Clark, speaking on behalf of Ashbourne Town Council. Ashbourne Town Council object to this proposal on 3 grounds. Firstly, the site is in flood risk areas 2 and 3. As we know from this summer, the climate has changed. We need to act accordingly by being more cautious about where we build, rather than relaxing the rules where we can. We acknowledge that a flood mitigation plan has been produced, but still regard this development as being a serious risk. Secondly, there's a footpath going through the site, albeit not registered as a right-of-way. An application has been made to have this registered as a public right-of-way. Until this is resolved, the path should not be obstructed. And if the application is granted, then access will still definitely be needed. This path is the only way to cross the Henmore between St Oswald's Church and Cemetery, giving pedestrian access for the residents of Mayfield Road across to the doctors' surgeries and the pharmacists by the hospital on the other side. And finally, the open space between Mayfield Road and Clifton Road is one of the great assets of Ashbourne, but there are too few ways of accessing it. The Cadet Hut is one of the few points along Mayfield Road where you could just walk in. During Shrovetide, this site is also one of the few points at which the ball can get into the open fields along the Henmore if it has come out of town past the church. Otherwise, it needs to go as far as the cemetery and the main roads or through the church. So on these 3 grounds, I request that we reject the application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. And finally, it's the turn now of Rebecca Cam, applicant, to speak in support of the application. And as with, does the applicant have 5 minutes? Yeah, sorry, you've got 5 minutes as applicant.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just getting this speech up now. Hello, I'm Rebecca and that's my family over there. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. I would particularly like to thank the case officer for their time, professionalism and efforts in bringing the application forward for members' consideration today. I would like to start by explaining why this application means so much to us personally. We have lived in Derbyshire for 6 years and have always had a strong connection with the area. Ashbourne has always been somewhere we have admired and hoped to call home, with its strong sense of community, local character and the quality of life it offers. When this site became available, we were determined to purchase it because we could see beyond its current dilapidated condition and recognise the potential it had. Rather than seeing a neglected building, we saw an opportunity, a chance to breathe new life into an existing structure and create a home where our family could settle, grow and become part of the Ashbourne community. Finding the right home in the right place is incredibly important for our family, and this site represented a unique opportunity for us to create a modern conversion which is much more sustainable through the reuse of the building, which our structural engineer has confirmed, rather than a new build. We were attracted not only by its location within the heart of Ashbourne, but also by the ability to restore and improve a building that had clearly been underused for some time. We are not proposing a new housing estate or seeking to develop a greenfield site. We're taking an existing building and giving it a new purpose. The proposal demonstrates our commitment to restoring the building to a standard that is sympathetic to its surroundings and appropriate for its location within Ashbourne. We have also worked closely with the planning department throughout the application and subsequently during the application. It has taken us 10 months to reach this point, with the application being validated from the 10th of October, but we have welcomed the constructive discussions and the opportunity to respond to the issues raised. We have worked with the Army cadets regarding the relocation to Queggs, and we understand that they are enjoying their new facilities, which has provided them with more space, and they have since doubled in size. We have also had discussions with the Nestlé landowners to make sure there is suitable access to their site for ongoing maintenance of the land and associated infrastructure, including the power lines. I would like to address the comments online regarding the informal route across the site, because we understand that this is something that matters to the local people. We fully understand that people have historically walked across the site. However, as we understand it, there is no legal public right of way. Nevertheless, we have not simply ignored the fact that people have become accustomed to using this route. Our planning consultant has worked with the local planning authority to identify an alternative route towards the Nestlé land and beyond. We have installed a field gate, which has been discussed with the landowners, who agree that it provides adequate access for maintenance of the site. This could provide a practical alternative for continued access on foot and, where appropriate, by vehicle, while still allowing the property to be secured and used as a private family home. However, alternatively, we are also open to other options to accommodate this, and will continue to work with the council to find the adequate solution. We believe the above demonstrates that we have listened to the concerns surrounding the site and have tried to find practical solutions rather than just simply closing the door on the historic use of the route. Our planning consultant, who attended yesterday's site visit but unfortunately cannot be here this evening, mentioned that some comments were made regarding the potential for flooding. The application is supported by a flood risk assessment, and the lead local flood authority has raised no objection to the proposed residential use of the building. As members will have seen during the site visit, the building is already elevated above ground level, which helps to address any potential risk of flooding. Ultimately, this application is about bringing an existing building back into meaningful use, but more importantly to us, it is about creating somewhere that our family can genuinely call a home. We have listened throughout the planning process, we have worked with the planning department, and we have sought to address any issues that have been raised. For us, this is not simply a planning application. We are not looking to develop the site for commercial gain. It is the opportunity to create our family home, invest in an existing building, and make Ashbourne our long-term home. We therefore respectfully ask members to support the planning department's recommendation and approve our application. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I think all our speakers tonight on this application have in a very good way, expressed a point of view, and it's obviously the role of the planning committee to take into account those comments. So thank you to everyone tonight for doing that. I'll invite then the case officer, Gina Huffin, to now please present the planning officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application at Mayfield Road, Ashbourne, for the change of use, extension and conversion of the existing or former cadet hut for use as a dwelling. The building was originally constructed by the Ministry of Defence and has been utilised by the Ashbourne Army Cadets for many years. Following their transfer to Queen Elizabeth Grammar School, the building and the site were put up for sale with no interest in using it for similar purposes and has finally been purchased by the applicant. It is proposed to retain and refurbish the existing building with the addition of new cladding, new windows and doors, and a wraparound terrace in association with its conversion. The principle of development in this location is supported by Policy S2, S3 and HC8, with the building located within the settlement of Ashbourne, a first-tier town. The site will be accessed via the existing access from Mayfield Road, and parking will be provided on a surface driveway to the front of the site. It is recommended that this application be approved with conditions, as it results in the reuse of a vacant site and building and provides opportunities for enhancements on site. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gina. So members, it's our normal manner now to have questions. Councillor Dobbs, Peter, and then Councillor Peter Slack.
Thank you, Chair.
Peter.
Gina, I notice in the summary of objections we have the response from County Council Public Rights of Way. They are a statutory consultee in this case, and to what extent is their word to be taken in the same way that we might take the local highways authorities' opinion about a situation? In other words, how significant is the statement made in the second box in the objections from the PROW from DCC?
We would take it into see the same consideration as highways. Obviously, based on the information we have, we'd also look at the status of the footpath. But they've obviously acknowledged that there is a DMO application in and put an objection in on this basis.
Do you wish to come back, Peter? Secondary question.
I'll come back in debate. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Councillor Peter Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. The first one is the ground. Now, is this owned by Nestles, or is it, and they sublet it, or is it completely separate to Nestles, this ground?
Gina.
The land next to it, the more wild land, is owned by Nestle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but that land isn't.
The land isn't owned by the applicant, but
Yeah,
is
yeah.
owned by
But-
Nestle.
I suppose
And there's
both-
an
both ones it were.
yeah, I think there's a right of access from Mayfield Road.
Yeah, and also the access to the site. It's is it the access acceptable coming into the site off the main road?
They've had to serve notice, so it is. I think it's in multiple ownership, so the notice has been served.
It's multiple, yeah.
Yeah.
And what are the residents? Nobody's complaining. The residents.
I think it was brought up that it was shared access, so
Yeah.
we've asked them to serve notice. So
Yeah, thank you,
yeah.
Gina.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. And Gina, thank you. Going back to the footpath, some of the people speaking tonight suggested that we could have a condition to avoid the footpath being closed. Would that be, and is that something that we can do as a planning authority? And would it be enforceable through the period of construction and subsequently when it's under private ownership?
I did discuss it with the agent during the application process. I think we discussed obviously the current buildings there and some of the terracing might be in line with the footpath. So I think they were wanting to potentially keep that where it is. I mean, this is the application that's been put in with the DMO application. So the footpath that they've put in is quite tight to it. So I think if they were to seek amendment to keep it, we would probably have to seek some amendments to it, because I believe the terracing will be where the current footpath is, or path. So it is something that we've sort of sought as part of the application. But I think if we wanted them to change the design, I think it's achievable, because obviously the existing building's there. But obviously, in this case, they do want to keep the terracing and pursue obviously the matter around the footpath as to whether it's going to be confirmed one or not. But in theory, there could be possibilities of changing it, because the existing building would still be retained where it currently is. But it's the issue of the terracing that they wish to wrap around the building, which will cross probably where the footpath line is, because it's quite tight to the building. So I suppose there would be ways to still undertake the conversion, but probably you'd have to work around it, and that's not something they've pursued necessarily through the application, but that is an opportunity, another opportunity, I suppose.
So if we did do that, I mean, if the footpath needed to be rerouted slightly to get around the terracing, I mean, first of all, is there sufficient space for the footpath to go beside the terracing? And secondly, it's likely there'll be a hedge or a fence between the two, between the footpath and the property. But secondly, if we conditioned that, would the applicant then have to go make an amendment put an application into Derbyshire County Council to amend the footpath?
Yes, if they wanted to, if it was determined by the county council that it was a defined footpath, if it was added to the map, if they wanted to change that line footpath, from that, they would have to apply for a diversion. If the diversion was agreed, then see if they could perhaps work it by the terracing. And if it wasn't agreed, I suppose it would be a case of perhaps revisiting that element of it. It would obviously be difficult if we've already done the
Right.
works, but it might be something where, the suggestion would be is to perhaps, look at what happens and then see perhaps if it's a case of amending an application. But it would be a case that if it was confirmed to be a footpath, they would have to apply for a separate diversion if they want to divert it. If they wanted to use a similar route to this rather than a potential route through the Nestle land, they would still have to apply to divert it, subject that county council agree to add it to the defined map. But it is something they could pursue. They could pursue it through. It's usually pursued through straight through the county council. Sometimes they come in at the same time as an application if you want to divert a footpath as part of an application. I think this one's a little bit more complicated as we've gone through it, just because we don't have quite that understanding as to whether it's defined or not, even though the application is going through the process. So I think until that's decided, it's
Smooth.
it is one of those that sort of sits between it. But I think there would be options, to either potentially divert it, or the building is currently where it is, and the footpath or path runs alongside it, so it might be some alterations on site might alleviate that issue as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Difficult before.
No,
that
it's
decision's
very clear.
made.
You've made it very clear. Thank you.
Continuing with questions, we've got Councillor Stuart Lees and then Councillor John Boyington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, going back to the footpath situation, has any permission been given where they've put the temporary stile in? Obviously, it's sort of diverted the footpath. So has any permission been given for that diversion now? 'Cause it's
I'm
on
not-
somebody else, it's on third party land.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it, but it's not something that the planning authority would give consent to. If there's any understanding, it would have to be with the county footpaths team, but
Yeah.
I've not seen anything myself.
And I do think the ownership of that field, unless I'm wrong, I don't think it is owned by Nestles. I think it's owned by Ashbourne Town Football Club. But I may be stand corrected on that one. But my other question is, Chair, should this get permission? Obviously, there's enough room down the fence side, which would have to be segregated for a footpath down that side. The right hand, well, where it is now, but pushed right to the side of the fence. Otherwise, it's going to have serious complications with health and safety whilst construction work's taking place. So I think the footpath is a big issue.
Thank you, Councillor Lees. John.
Just a query, really. Can we condition that the terracing is deferred until the footpath matter is resolved, so that potentially the building work can go ahead, but without the terracing, which potentially is blocking what might become a footpath?
I suppose that's something we could try and agree with the applicant and agent. I don't know what James, perhaps, or Chris.
Chris, could you comment?
I think it would be difficult to devise a condition that made the terracing contingent on the outcome of an unknown decision. What might, however, I'll defer to my legal colleague if he has a different view. The other possibility I'm thinking is whether it would be possible to condition that the terrace is not built, so that element of the proposal is removed, and then the applicant could potentially come back at a later date if the county advised that there isn't a public right of way. The applicant could apply then separately for a terrace at that point. Whether that's a legally sound way of approaching the issue, I'm looking at my legal colleague for advice, but Yeah,
Any comments, James?
I'm not happy saying off the top of my head one way or the other. It's something I would need to go away and consider.
Right. John, have you got any secondary question at all?
No, it seems to be we don't know the answer to the question effectively. That's what my understanding in reality.
Yeah. So if members are toward, can we go into debate then now? Final questions from you, Stuart. Right. Let's move then into debate, and it's down to members to either move the officer's recommendation or to not support it and move refusal. Councillor Lees and then Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'm not against the building of this site at all. I think it's I wish the family well to live down there, but I do think more could be done with this building. The applicant herself said it's dilapidated, in a dilapidated state, and end of the day, you're clad in a timber shed really and turn it into an house. I think there's more mileage in putting another proposal in for a brick built building, proper house, raised off the ground, with even flood mitigation things in place underneath it. So I'd be mindful to move this application, to defer this application until, to give the applicant some time to probably put an application in to build it in brick, or to wait till we've got a definite answer on the footpath, because you can't get out your front door if you haven't got a patio to step out onto. So I think it does create problems either way. So I'd like to propose deferring it until we got a definite decision from the county on the footpath
Does
situation.
that find a seconder, please? Councillor Slack. Thank you. So we've now got a motion before the committee to debate that the application be deferred. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do agree with Councillor Lees. I think this building needs to be properly built. To just temporarily, well, it's a temporary job really, putting wood shelf around it, it'd be out of character really. So I do agree with Councillor Lees. It's still to be built in or stone, sir. Could be built in stone, you don't like brick, but could be built in stone, natural stone. But it needs to be a proper building, in my opinion.
Right, so I invite Councillor.
I agree with deferral. Yeah.
Councillor Burfoot, Councillor Malmstrom, and Councillor Hughes. Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. I can't agree with this deferral. I shan't be voting for a deferral. I think this looks quite a unique proposal, and at the end of the day, it's down to the applicant to put forward what they consider to be a home for them that they will want to live in, and if it doesn't comply with what we think it should be, then that's not for us to say. We are considering tonight the application as put before us, and I don't see any reason at all to defer it just because we might not like the look of what they are proposing. I think our planning officer here, Gina, has explained really well about the public right-of-way issue. So when we eventually come to it, I will be supporting this application as it stands. I won't be supporting the deferral.
Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Well, basically, what Sue said, I'm not sure legally we can actually defer just because we think a better use could be made of this land, to be honest. The applicants may not be able to afford to build a brick or stone house, and it's not for us to tell them what they should be building. This is what they've applied for, so we have to say yes or no to that. So I agree with Councillor Burfoot, I'm afraid.
For those comments, Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Burfoot as well, and I think there's a provenance associated with this site. It's a cadet hut. The improvements that will be made will turn it into a dwelling. but it will still have the provenance of what it was before. And there are plenty of timber framed houses in the country, and they seem to survive for a long period of time. But I am still worried about the footpath, and I would like us to safeguard that footpath in whatever way we can. So while not supporting the reason for the deferment, I would suggest that it would be nice if the applicant could come back with a modified design showing where a rerouted footpath could be put, and with appropriate fencing to safeguard it from other use, and safeguard their property and the footpath itself, so that it can continue to be used as a public right of way. If the applicant can provide that, then I would be in support of the application. But I can't support it if it goes against the MPPF paragraph about public rights of way.
I'll compromise my impartiality. I do agree with you, David. And the applicant did say, I'd like to know a little bit more in terms of, she said, other options pertaining the path. Unfortunately, I can't invite you to come in. Peter, do you wish to speak, please?
Yes, Chair. I mean, we are in danger of avoiding the elephant in the room, which is the path. It is the footpath, and we have to have a footpath. To be perfectly honest, whoever advised the applicant in terms of the footpath perhaps didn't do the job that they might have done. It's pretty obvious to all Ashbourne residents that this footpath exists and has done for a long time, and it's clearly upset a lot of people closing it off. That wasn't perhaps the best start. I would like, if we conceivably can, this evening, to ensure that that footpath remains open in the current alignment, because I see no particular reason not to, if it's any possibility that it could become a public right of way. I can't see why it shouldn't become a public right of way, bearing in mind the length of time it's been used. So I think we have to move forward with that assumption, and we're going to look fairly silly if we approve something, only have to have part of it knocked down later on. I think the applicant has to acknowledge that they're going to have a footpath running in close proximity to this house. And if they didn't realise when they purchased it, then perhaps they didn't do full research. I'm sorry, that seems very harsh, and I do take the point that they're trying to turn this into a family home, but there has been a footpath. I think we must ensure that a footpath continues to be there. Thank you, Chair.
Any other member wishing? Councillor Murphy, Dermot.
Thanks, Chair. This is not an unusual situation. I remember being a county councillor and used to get consultations about some of the villages that I looked after about existing footpaths that had been missed off the definitive plan, and it was only a matter of time before they'd actually get put onto the official maps and whatever. It took a bit of time, but I do understand there were cases where the local landowner would say, well, can we make a slight variation in parts of it just to facilitate the modern situation, and often it was accepted, and eventually these paths would be incorporated onto the map. So I'd have deferred this for the reasons of the footpath. I agree with much of what Peter has said, and but I've seen many a private property sold, and it has a public rights of way across it. I wouldn't buy one personally, but it does happen. So I'd like to see the work of the county council, the rights of way people. I'd like to see that completed personally before any work is actually started. I wouldn't like to see the footpath to be lost in any way at all. It's obviously been used a lot over the last 100 years. So I think we need, like Peter says, we need to protect them.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I would say that in terms of a footpath which has been used historically, then there is a possibility of the objectors taking out an injunction to keep that footpath open as has been done, as is being tried at the moment against Derbyshire County Council in a location near us, where the county council has closed off a footpath, a way that is being treated as a public right of way for several years, and the county council has closed it off, and now there's a legal fight going on. So I can't see that this application can succeed with even if we give it approval. Probably the likelihood is that residents would then seek an injunction against the owners for closing off the footpath, as seems to have happened already, and as such they wouldn't be able to then build until the footpath issue had been resolved.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak? We've got a motion before us to defer. Councillor Lees, would you also perhaps within your motion like to comment more about the issue of the footpath?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I hear what people are saying about the building. It's up to the applicant what they want to build and what they want to live in, and how they want to do it. So I am quite happy to withdraw that part of my deferral part, but I am keen to have it deferred. I still want deferment until this footpath is sorted out, because even if the building work goes ahead, the footpath, choose what happens to the footpath, there's still going to have to be some temporary arrangement for the footpath to be moved to one side whilst work is done, because you can't have Joe Public walking through a building site. So I would like it deferred, still deferred until we get an answer. I know it's not a material planning issue as such, but I think it's important that this footpath is, because you can't build a terrace, else people are going to be walking over your terrace basically. So I do think it's important that I still want to defer it till we get an answer from the county.
I want to take it, Stuart, that you've just wound up the debate, and I want to bring in Chris, please, for your comments.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've obviously been listening to the debate. In terms of deferring it, I just think the committee needs to be very clear on the reason or reasons for deferral. So there is there's two slightly different potential reasons that have been talked about. One is to wait and see what the outcome of the decision is by the county on the footpath. The other reason that's been suggested is for the applicant to come up with a solution that addresses this issue. Maybe an alternative solution that reroutes the footpath or some other solution. So I just think it might be that there's a combination of both those reasons, or one or other of them. I just think that committee needs to be clear on the reason, really, or reasons for deferral.
Thank you very much. Stuart, would you like to elaborate a little bit more, perhaps focused on the path issue?
I should say, if it goes ahead, I should say public safety is a good reason for deferral, because you've got a footpath going through the middle of a building site.
Well, members, it's been moved and seconded that we defer the application before us. All those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Against? Abstentions? 1 abstention. So that is carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to our second application now, please. Second application is found on page 37 of the agenda. Outline application, all matters reserved for the erection of 2 numbered dwellings. We've got some late representations that if members could just spend a few minutes looking at. I take it everyone's got a copy of this before them. Thank you, Sue.
Chair, point of information. My colleague on my right here says that his copy of the recommendations has page 14. I don't know, 40 has okay at the beginning.
There's two sets because there were two. This is a deferral, so the previous officer report gets in there as well.
Okay. There's the reserve matter submission shall comprise the development of one dwelling house, but that's not in a condition anywhere. So it's just a recommendation. So what are we agreeing?
David, I think Rosie will explain, please.
I was going to explain in my presentation that my recommendation is for one dwelling now, and that's condition 3 on page 40. It says the reserve matters submission shall comprise a development of one dwelling house.
So that is what will go out if it is approved. That's what will go out in the letter to the applicant.
It would be in the decision notice, and that they would have to submit reserve matters, and we would only accept reserve matters for one dwelling.
So if we move now, members, to representations, can I invite then again Councillor Clark, Ashbourne Town Council, who I understand is going to speak against the application, and then after Councillor Clark, it's Graham Field, the agent, to speak in support. Councillor Clark. Warm, isn't it?
Well, we're not getting that.
Good evening once again. The Ashbourne Town Council object to this application on 3 grounds, though one is much more important than the others. Firstly, there are 11 houses around the turning circle at the end of Beresford Avenue. This means that at the end of every day, there are a large number of car movements, and at the beginning of every day, large number of car movements, and also people parking additional cars on the edge of the roads. Having a single driveway for 3 houses, which would be number 35 and also the new build with 2 houses, assuming it goes to that, this creates a junction onto this already crowded space, and will inevitably mean that cars will need to queue in the turning circle, blocking access to the other residents. Secondly, the new build is proposed to be off the existing building line. Admittedly, it is at the front, it will be behind, so it's not so serious, but at the back, it will intrude onto the view from the footpath across from the Henmore, coming out of Ashbourne Park, one of the most attractive walking routes out of the town. Then finally, the serious matter. The access road is still very narrow, even if the hedge is removed. It will have to support car access for 3 houses, number 35 and the 2 additional ones, plus pedestrian access to number 36 as well. There is a history of complaints between numbers 35 and 36 over blocked access and obstruction on the existing driveway. This will be exacerbated by this development. We accept that the driveway is inside the legal limits for private driveways, but we'd rather stick to the County Council's allowances rather than permitting the lowest available width. We note in the proposal in the officer's report that a condition could be set reducing the number of houses to 1. This would be an improvement, but it would not really meet all of our objections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll call upon the agent, Graham Field, please. Bloomfield, right. I went to college at Broomfield. way back. It's got 5 minutes. Yes, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. My name is Graham Bloomfield. I'm a Charter Town Planner, an agent for this outline planning application. I welcome the officer's recommendation to approve and thank them for their hard work on the application. It is not my intention to repeat the officer's report, which sets out a thorough and compelling case as to why the application is in accordance with policies of local and neighbourhood plans and planning permission should be granted. From attendance at the previous meeting in March, it is my understanding that members of this planning committee had no concerns in terms of the principle of residential development at Windfall New Homes, within a first-tier settlement at the top of a settlement hierarchy. Fundamentally, this was considered to comprise sustainable development, and it was considered then that 2 new homes can be delivered appropriate to the local character and without harm to the amenities of the surrounding residential properties. The main consideration and reason for deferral was for further reassurance around safe access to the site, both for the new occupants and existing residents. In particular, given the outline nature of the proposals, there was a level of uncertainty around the widths of access required and achievable, and the advice from Derbyshire County Council as the local highway authority to give that reassurance to members. This has therefore been the focus of collaborative work subsequently with your planning officers and highways officers, and is the main emphasis of my presentation. Just to set the tone, the current access onto Beresford Avenue and width of the driveway is 2.7 metres, widening to 3.35 metres into development site between numbers 35 and 36. This includes a shared pedestrian access to the side and rear of 35 and 36, demarked with a flat curb along the southwestern boundary or the right-hand side as you look from Beresford Avenue. To be clear, all of that driveway and pedestrian access is within the applicant's ownership. The legal requirement is for the pedestrian access to be retained for use free from obstruction, and that is achieved by these proposals. Currently, cars for number 35 park on the left-hand side of the driveway. This is an important point, that there are cars permanently on the driveway as it currently stands, and this can be relatively tight for example, the users of 36, their grandchildren to get bikes and scooters past, etc. Critically as well, those vehicles are manoeuvring on the driveway. They either have to enter or leave the site in reverse gear, again reducing visibility and increasing the potential for conflict with people using the driveway and the shared path. Therefore, in that context, we would consider that even at a most basic level, the proposals represent a betterment to the current position. Vehicles for number 35 and the proposed new home will now be parked at the rear of the property, keeping the driveway clear from parked vehicles. Pedestrians can now benefit from the use of the full access width of the new shared surface. Vehicles will park and turn to the rear within the new development, thereby using the shared surface driveway in forward gear to access and egress with good forward visibility of other users. Again, a betterment on the current position. As set out in the officer's report, we've also engaged with them to clarify widths to be achieved within the development and have proposed further enhancement. Full detail was provided in the submitted planning statement, which I provided in correspondence to you. So the access onto Beresford Avenue will now be increased to 3.2 metres by removal of gateposts and shrubs and hedgerow. Indicative widening of the driveway is proposed to the northwest or left-hand side by 1 metre to 3.7 metres, with 3.35 metres retained between the two properties to the rear. This is demonstrably wide enough for a range of vehicles. Lorries, for example, require a 3 metre width, and more general use by cars at 2 metres, so there are no issues with delivery or construction vehicles. We've also proposed some form of protective curb to number 36, again conscious that at the previous committee meeting they didn't want fencing or some sort of harder measure there. This work has been undertaken in full collaboration with local highway authority, who've raised no more objection within a detailed appraisal. Specifically considering safe pedestrian access, they cite the following: low traffic and pedestrian flows. Accordingly, it would be rare that pedestrians and vehicles would use the relatively short section of driveway at the same time, but sufficient width is available if this does occur. The route from the front door of number 36 is about halfway along that driveway, and the highway authority estimate that as a travelling distance by foot of some 7 seconds. Highways officers generally cite low vehicle speeds and good levels of visibility, and they have requested a construction management plan. So this could include the use of banksmen, for example, when construction vehicles are using that space. The above highway support is based on 2 dwellings, but we've agreed to reduce to 1 in liaison with your planning officers to further reduce concerns. This shows a willing to compromise given the comments from neighbours and the previous discussions of this committee. This also further reinforces the ability to deliver parking within the development and a greater flexibility to the future design and layout of the new home and its position within the plots. We do appreciate the comments made by neighbours and the Town Council, and the applicant provided a detailed response to these, which again I shared with you in advance of the committee meeting. But I would summarise that the development is considered acceptable by the experts of the local highway authority, with a betterment to the current arrangements in terms of convenience and safe access, with one additional new home seeing a very limited impact. Objectors have sought to argue that Beresford Avenue has particularly unique challenges with traffic
I'm afraid
and parking.
you'll have to see. I have allowed you over time,
That's
so
that was the crux.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll listen now with care to the case officer. Rosie, if you'd like to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application, it's an outline planning application with all reserved matters for the erection of up to 2 dwelling houses. So as you may recall, this came to planning committee back in March. Members did a site visit at the time, and it was resolved to defer the application following and requesting that further information be submitted to demonstrate a safe access. So since that committee meeting, I've also been out to measure the width of the drive, because there seemed to be some discrepancies about how actually wide the driveway was, and also the footpath that's immediately adjacent to that. So the existing driveway is 2.7 metres and the adjacent footpath is 0.8 metres, and that sort of continues all the way along until you get between the houses, and that extends to 3.35 metres. The applicants said that they would be able to increase the width of the driveway between 3.2 metres to 3.7 metres. So a planning statement was prepared, and this was sent to County Highways for them to review. County Highways are generally accept the proposal. They acknowledge that it's got low traffic speeds, low volume of traffic, and they have no reason to refuse it on highway safety grounds, and they've recommended a number of conditions which are generally the same as previously suggested. An important one there is the construction traffic management plan. We have further representations, which I've summarised in my report from neighbours since the last committee. Officers ourselves did feel some concern that about the construction phase of the development, and whether 2 dwellings would be too much on the site during the construction, and how that would work. And so sort of further discussions with the Highway Authority and the applicant, as the application is for up to 2, we've recommended condition 3, that the reserved matters should just comprise 1 dwelling house. So hopefully that will overcome some of the concerns that were raised by members before. So the conditions you should be looking at are the ones on page 40 to 43, not the original report, because there's been some changes since then. The main one is condition 3, with the development only comprising 1 dwelling house. But all matters are reserved, so condition 1 asks for all the other matters that you'd expect in reserved matters, which is scale, layout, external appearance of the dwelling, access and landscaping. So my recommendation is for approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Rosie. So it's open for questions. Councillor Dobbs, then Councillor Hughes. Peter.
Thank you, Rosie. It's a question about measurements, where we kind of began this. There does seem to be some gradual increase. I mean, I quote from the 3rd page of what was almost the last document to go on the portal from Local Highways Authority on their 3rd page, para 3, 3.7 metre width available along most of the driveway. I don't think that's an entirely true statement, is it? What do you understand where do you understand the widening to be occurring, and in what direction, and how achieved, if that's okay? Thank you.
Rosie.
Oh, sorry. This is the plan that was submitted for the 2 dwellings, but obviously we're not recommending this plan is approved. It's been superseded by the proposal for only one dwelling on the site. But this shows how the access could be widened, and it's 3.2 on the entrance to the site.
Thank you, Rosie.
Peter.
I still, if I can continue, I don't understand how 3.2 is achievable within their own red line boundary, because that's a very informative red line. If you see, the red line does not emerge from 33/35 at right angles, and it then takes an oblique angle and joins at what I will interpret as the gatepost. I would find it difficult to believe that the entirety of the hedge is actually in the ownership of number 35, if indeed the whole gatepost is in the ownership of number 35. And in any case, half a hedge isn't a hedge, it just dies. So I'm concerned that this sort of width has been, zapped up a bit, which seems unfortunate. And we still have this bit, which by all the photographic evidence is not particularly wide at the crucial entrance. Is that a reasonable statement? The previous photograph would be quite good as an illustrative point.
I think I'm having
That
technical
one,
issues
yeah.
today. Stop clicking.
There we go. Yeah, this one shows the entrance to the site quite nicely. So that would be the hedge, which could be removed to widen the access to the site.
So could you explain what they're going to take away to get the extra 0.7 meters or whatever it is?
I understand it's the entirety of the hedge.
I don't think it is inside the red line boundary. It's that simple. That's my understanding. Looking at that photograph, looking at the plan, and looking at how they drew the boundaries and why they drew them in that way. But the drive had to be within the property land registry of number 35, and they would draw it to the gatepost in order to achieve that. I don't think they own any more. There may be a hedge, and it may be quite wide, but I would dispute the fact that it actually belongs to 35. I would say that it's possible that it doesn't. And indeed, number 33 makes exactly this point, which, if I can move on to my next question, if that's all right, and I'm making a bit of a meal of this, sorry about that. It was clear from the correspondence from Mr. Broomfield that he'd spoken to Highways on Teams meetings and by the phone. Is there any evidence that any of the residents have been afforded the same opportunity?
Rosie,
I wouldn't personally know if any of the residents would have spoken directly to Highways as they are a consultee. It's unusual for them to get spoken to directly by members of the public.
Okay, if I can rephrase it slightly, is there any evidence in the Highways report that they've taken any notice whatsoever of what the local residents have said?
I've certainly had discussions with the Highway Authority because obviously they gave me their recommendation, and I've discussed it through with them and said, I've been on site, I've measured it, this is how wide it is existing. Are you confident that you think this is sufficient to serve the two dwellings or one dwelling as we're recommending now?
Thank you, Councillor Hughes, David, and then Laura.
No, it's Stuart now.
Sorry, it's Stuart, then David, and then Laura. Stuart.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got the same concerns as Councillor Dobbs, to be honest. Does the footpath to number 36, is that included in the width of the highway to the new dwellings, or is it going to be separate? Is one question.
Yes, it's within the width.
So the pedestrians coming out of number 36 are not going to be walking on a footpath, they're going to be walking on a road, basically, then, that's to the new dwelling. Is that correct?
The idea would be that it would be a shared surface. Obviously, this is outlined with all reserved matters, including access. So it's just been that we've been pursuing the idea of access and how that can be arranged. We're not agreeing the arrangement. So this plan that we've got shown at the moment shows a footpath on the left-hand side. I wouldn't expect that to be on the left-hand side. I'd expect that to be on the right-hand side for number 36. But we're not approving that plan. It's reserved matters that we'll put in the detailed plans.
Right, and my second question is, I know it's gone to one dwelling, but is that down to reserve matters where that dwelling's going to be sited on that site? Because Councillor Clark from the Town Council made a good point that the houses are moved closer to the Enmore where the footpath is, it's moving closer to the floodplain, and the row of houses, it breaks up the line of the houses. It's out of line with all the rest of the development down that area, so it's quite prominent, or it's going to be prominent position wherever it's put on that site. So my question is really, is if it's one dwelling, should that be a new complete application?
Fair comment, Councillor Lees. Rosie.
So what we have is an outline application, which is a two-stage process. So it goes to reserved matters next. So I'm recommending condition 3, which makes it only one dwelling. So the details come forward in the reserved matters application. So we don't need a brand new application. It's like a secondary application process once outline's been approved.
Councillor Lees, any secondary questions?
Yeah, it does. Yep. So that'll come at reserved matters then, exactly where that one house is going to be sited on that site. It could be next to the house, it could be at the far corner, it could be anywhere really, but that's going to come to reserved matters. Is that right?
That's right. So if you look at condition 1, it outlines what the 5 reserved matters are, and one of them is layout. So that's where you pin down exactly where it would be located.
And just one final point is, again, for number 36, where the drive's coming in now on your proposed plan, highlighted in red, that again is that hedge owned by number 36 or is it owned by number 35? Because that's going to have some detrimental effect on the drive coming in. 33, is it? Sorry. 36. No, on the back side, where it comes round the corner.
To the right hand side,
yeah,
drive,
where it goes down and it kinks round.
Yeah, that would be 36.
So is that hedge remaining then?
Yes, it would, because it's not within the applicant's ownership.
Well, wasn't that one of the reasons why we deferred in the first place? Because it was tight on that pinch point where that edge is situated. I may be wrong, but that's, you can see it on that picture where the bins are, and that's where the edge is, where it kinks there, and that's number 36's hedge.
Move to Councillor Hughes. We can make further comments in debate. Thank you, Councillor Lees. Councillor Hughes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rosie. There's too many numbers, but returning to access, I'm a bit confused. First, I mean, there are 4 numbers perhaps that we need to understand. First is, what is the statutory minimum for a driveway?
To ask your other questions,
Okay,
Chris
well,
can
the
make
second question is,
yeah.
What is Derbyshire County Council's minimum for a driveway?
The Derbyshire County Council's minimum for a highway, yeah.
For a driveway. Well,
driveway, yeah. Sorry.
The third question is, what is the width of the opening as it stands now, so we don't have to cut down any hedges? And is that number greater or lesser than the previous numbers? And the third point is, if we could zoom in on that picture a long way so that we can see, so we just show the gateway and forget about the car. Can you do that? Can you zoom in? That's a bit further. The hedge, the boundary of the right-hand boundary of the driveway as it stands at the moment Is that the red line? Does that indicate the red line between the two properties, or is the red line between the two properties the edge of the path, which is some metre in from that point? In which case, there is a fundamental difference in what is measured at that point.
Thank you, David. Are you able to answer the first question from David, please?
Yeah, just double checking what was in my report and what was in the highways response, and it is actually repeated in the report in the consultation section on page 38. You were asked about the minimum width, and for shared driveways, Derbyshire County Council planning streets and places design guidance states that shared driveways have a minimum width of 4.1 metres for the first 15 metres from the edge of the carriageway to allow two vehicles to enter and leave simultaneously. But in their response, and as I have said in the report, the highways officer accepts that this is a situation where there can be some relaxation in that due to the length of the driveway and also sort of low traffic and pedestrians flow in this area. It would just serve, well, up to 2 dwellings now rather than 3.
Chris, were you able to make a note of the other questions from David?
I think there was a question about what's the statutory width for a driveway. I'm not a highways officer. To my knowledge, there isn't a statutory width, but Rosie may correct me.
I've just quoted that one.
Yeah, so that the 4.1 is the highways width.
Yeah.
County highways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the standard they normally work to, 4.1 metres.
Okay, but that's probably wider than is needed in this case. I can quite understand that. But you say that the width is 2.7 metres unless we cut down the gatepost and the hedge. So now what does that 2.7 metres measure? Is it between the edge of the footpath and the left-hand boundary of the driveway, or is it including the footpath?
Yeah, as I've specified, it includes the footpath, so it's 2.7 and includes a 0.8 metre footpath.
Right. So now, do you know where the red line is on that? Is the red line on the edge of the on the left-hand edge of the footpath or the right-hand edge of the footpath?
The right-hand side of the footpath.
David, we've got Councillor Maelstrom and then Councillor Peter Slack. Laura.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if, rather than getting bogged down in measurements and who owns which hedge, which really is none of our business as to who owns the land and what the measurements actually are, because we're not surveyors or land agents, can't we just condition that the access has to be, for example, 3.4 metres wide or whatever the applicant says it's going to be, and then if they can't actually achieve that on the land they own, then they can't build it, and that's their risk. Can we not just do that?
Thank you. Chris, could you respond to that, please?
I think the difficulty with that is that if conditions have to be, as a number of legal tests they have to meet, and so it has to be known at this stage that 3.4, if that's the desired width, it has to be known at this stage that it's possible to fulfil that condition. Otherwise, the condition itself could become ultra virus. So it is important, I think, at this stage to establish the position of 3.4 metres.
Does it have to be possible to fulfil on the land that the applicant currently owns? Or, I mean, it could be possible for the applicant to fulfil by reaching a financial settlement with the neighbours, for example. And that's sometimes what has to happen to make a site buildable. We've seen various applications for housing estates where there are doubts over whether they can actually access particular footpaths and what have you, and that's not a planning consideration usually.
I would say it does have to be addressed as part of this application. It has to be deliverable within the red line. It has to be deliverable within the land owned by the applicant, and if that is something that if 3.4 meters is considered to be the appropriate width and the minimum width, then we need to be assured of that at this stage. It's certainly perfectly reasonable to attach a planning condition. That's completely reasonable to say that the driveway should be 3.4 meter width, but it also needs to be done in the knowledge that that is deliverable within the red line of the site. And if there's any doubt on that, then I would say that that's not something that can be delivered by condition. It would be something if there's a criticality to the width of 3.4 meters. I'm not necessarily saying there is, but that would be a reason potentially to refuse planning permission or to defer the item. But I don't think it should be dealt with by condition if we don't know if it's not known for certain.
That that's the width they're going to achieve, then they've
Yeah.
warranted that, haven't they?
If they can deliver that on their site, then that's perfectly reasonable as a planning condition. Is it just checking with Rosie what the width is at the moment? Do we know?
The existing width.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the 2.7 that we've mentioned.
2.7.
Yeah, a few times. Yeah. At the entrance to the driveway.
Laura, any final question? No. Just finally, I want to bring in Councillor Peter Slack, and then I'd like to move to someone to move some sort of recommendation so we can enter into debate. Councillor Slack.
Thank you. Can we put the photograph on again, please? Right. I noticed last time we went there, the neighbour step comes down onto the drive. Now, she's a right away to go up there with a pram and get into, and she's got to get in all under stepping into her property. It's going to be very, very difficult, really, if a car's going up there at the same time. You know, I know we complain about the measurements and all, but really, she's got a right away to get into her house, hasn't she? Next door neighbour. Really? Is that? Would you say that were valid, Rosie?
Have a response, Rosie, please.
Yes, I remember the neighbour talking, and they've written in again. Obviously, spoke about grandchildren, and that is their only access into 36. We've been mindful of that needs to be, part of the proposals that would need to be included, a pedestrian path up to their house.
I feel as chair we need to move on because the opportunity for endless dialogue will be in debate. So does any member at this point wish to either move the officer recommendation or take a different view? Councillor Lees.
I just got a final question for just clarification, basically, Chair, which would make a big So, just for clarification, the line we can see on the picture there is a curb line down the path. Mm-hmm. So anything the right hand side of that curb is owned by number 36. Am I right? Just correct me if I'm right on that one.
Rosie.
So 36 has got right down that path to the front door of their house and to the back garden, which Councillor Slack's just mentioned, which would be very, very tight. Is that correct? Before we make, because I think that's the same sort of situation that Councillor Hughes was coming up with. Where is that red line? Is it on that curb line, or is it on where it's the grass?
Rosie.
So the red line includes the footpath that goes to number 36.
That concludes the questions. We need to move forward now. What is the perception of members in coming to a recommendation then, please? Councillor John Boynton.
Yes, Chair, I recommend that we go for officer recommendation to approve with this. It's been discussed before, and the main source of questioning, if you like, is regarding the footpath. Now, at the bottom of page 37, it describes the manual for streets, and I'm not sure what that is. There's a minimum width being 2 metres for a car. Clearly, there's more than 2 metres there. And the discussion over the width of the drive, I think I understand what they mean by taking out the gate post. The gate post itself will give a few more centimetres, and the hedge squared up without taking any of the neighbour's hedge will also give probably that extra distance. So I'm happy with the entrance to it. With the footpath adjacent to 36, I know it's been mentioned about people with a pram using it, which is a fair comment. However, the reality is, if there's a lady walking down there with a pram, nobody's going to drive down there until the pram's moved. So I don't see that being an issue. So I would go for officer recommendation, please.
Does that find a seconder, please? Councillor Hughes, thank you.
Yes, for the same reasons.
Thank
I
you,
think
David.
also that the we're talking about widening the gateway, and the gateway is adequate for the one property. A second property will add a very small additional amount of traffic, and it'll be enormous. It'll be a couple of 3 or 4 perhaps movements a day. So the chances of conflict between pedestrians and cars is very low. If the only issue I can see is children playing out in the front garden when cars are going in and out, but that's one of those issues that would always have to be resolved.
David, does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to add another condition, if at all possible, in terms of the construction management plan. If I can just mention before, the agent made the point that once this is developed, there should be no cars on this drive because they can park behind. So the key point is during development, and I'd like a condition to be placed such that no vehicle of any description should actually be parked on the driveway such as to obstruct in any way the 0.8 metre pavement. In other words, so that that is absolutely unobstructed day and night, so that number 36 has full access with no ducking under wing mirrors or anything. That would seem to be fair in a situation which I think, to be perfectly honest, is very unfair to number 36. We are where we are, and the Highways Authority have spoken against their own policies. Well, there you go. And we would be hard pushed to fight against that. So I think I do recommend that as an additional condition to the construction management plan. And it's looking ahead, but hopefully we can remember when we do the reserve matters to actually have the condition that no vehicle should ever be parked on this driveway.
They're very wise and reasonable comments, Peter. Do you have to formally move that as yeah, it's down to the mover and second. You're okay with that, Stuart? Sorry?
I didn't move it.
Sorry.
It's me, Chair. I'm
John,
more than happy with that. It's a very sensible suggestion.
Are you okay, David?
And I'm happy with it as well.
Yeah. I feel we could take this to the vote now. So all those in favour that the application is approved with the added condition that's been submitted by Councillor Dobbs, please show. Against? Abstentions? 1 abstention. So I think, John, has that been carried by 1? Yeah. So that has been carried. Thank you, members. Do members want a quick break at this point for a moment or two, or do you wish to proceed? No? Okay, we'll proceed then. So our next application is found on page 61, which again was a site visit yesterday, 66 Starcombs Road, Matlock, outline planning consent for the erection of 6 bungalows involving demolition of existing dwelling, with approval being sought for access, landscaping and layout scale. And we have some late representations perhaps members will take time for a few moments to look at, and then we'll invite the various speakers to address the planning committee, please. So can I invite now, please, Sonia Clibbens, local resident, to speak against this application. And Sonia, as you've probably gathered, you've got 3 minutes as and when you wish to start. It's to the left.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sonia Clibbens and I own and live at number 70 Starcombs Road, immediately adjacent to the proposed development. I'm asking the committee to refuse this application because of the unacceptable impact the proposed access and parking arrangements would have on the existing residents. The proposed access could remove approximately 10 established parking spaces along Starcombs Road, which are heavily relied upon residents of number 70 to 82, including elderly residents and a disabled resident who currently uses designated disabled bay. This application has suggested this disabled bay could potentially be relocated, but this is not confirmed and it would no longer be conveniently located outside the resident's front door. It is therefore not an equivalent replacement. The 6 spaces proposed within the development are not allocated to the residents losing their existing parking. They could be used by the 6 new households, their visitors and other users in the site. So the established parking relied upon existing residents could be replaced by just 6 unsecured spaces. The Highway Authority has also raised concerns about the parking calculations, with further removal potentially required to achieve the necessary visibility displays. There is therefore a real possibility that all the existing bay parking could be lost, including the disability parking space. These bays provide safe, convenient parking to close residents' homes, with particular importance given to the steep gradients. There is also practical issues of delivery drivers, carers, tradespeople and visitors. If the established bays disappear, where are these vehicles expected to park? There is a real risk of that vehicles instead will park on footways elsewhere on the road, creating further obstruction and safety problems. The visibility requirements could also mean removing the established trees along the bays. These trees provide important visible and physical buffer from the busy road, improve the appearance of that stretch of Starcombs Road and help reduce noise and pollution. Removing them would leave the homes more exposed and would adversely affect the character and appearance of the street scene and amenity of existing residents. There's also a very significant impact on my own property. The 6 parking bays would be positioned directly alongside the full length of my gable end, only a few metres from my kitchen and dining room window. People parking there would be able to look directly into my home. I would have headlights shining towards the windows, as well as engine noise, doors opening and closing, people talking, vehicle emissions immediately alongside my property. I would therefore suffer a loss of privacy and residential amenity. my gable end is north facing and receives no direct sunlight. I installed a large dining room window specifically to bring as much natural light in as possible to what was a very dark room. If it's suggested that hedging or trees could be planted to screen this parking, this creates another problem. Screening only a few metres from my window would additionally overshadow and significant loss of natural light entering my kitchen and dining room area. So there's no straightforward screening solution that avoids a significant impact on my residential amenity.
Sonia, I'll have to ask you to conclude because
Sorry.
I've allowed you over time.
All right,
but-
no worries.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, and they to some extent I think confirm for some members what we saw on site yesterday. So it's Sue Lamb, please. I understand, Sue, you're a local resident and also are going to speak against the application. That's it.
Yeah. My computer is not talking to my printer at the moment. So what the lady before said about the parking, and she mentioned the disabled bay, which happens to be the disabled bay outside our house at number 78. It would make my life extremely difficult if that facility was removed. And it's sort of the proposal saying about having some spaces on the front of the complex where they want to build their 6 bungalows. But again, for me to be able to park down there and then be walking up the thing, or if it was just me, but if I'm trying to carry anything or move anything, or it would be extremely difficult. Also, we have been living there since October 76, so we've seen changes in the area and everything. And I also feel that if those parking spaces were removed, it would mean that the traffic would get even faster going past our house because there's not going to be that thing. So I think that would cause additional problems. And also, again, about the trees, which are a good way of filtering fumes and all that sort of thing. So my main concern, it may seem a bit selfish, but I really need the parking space outside our house to enable me to be as mobile and able to move about as possible.
Thank you very much for those comments. So I ask Mr. Philip Lamb, please. And you too, Philip, I understand, are speaking against the application. The speaker has been left on.
Yeah, right, thank you. I think my wife said mainly what I was going to say, but I would just like to say that the whole thing's been very, very stressful for us. And when they put the house up for sale, we assumed it had been turned down already when they put the house up for sale recently. And then this has brought it all back again. I'm very concerned about the value of the properties of the 7 houses, which will lose the parking at the expense of the new house being built, which is going to give them money, take it away from us. You know, yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, Starcombs is very short of on-street parking anyway, you know, because a lot of people have had driveways put into the houses, which means nobody else can park in front. And like I say, we've been there 50 years. We've had the disabled bay for at least 20 years. And if they move the disabled bay up one, it means it's in front of our next door neighbour's house, which is not very nice for them, is it? If they do that, that was the last proposal that we came up with. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really got anything else to say because my wife said it all really. I'm just worried about the value of the properties coming down. and people will have to, if the parking is done away with on there, they'll have to go down to the next lot of parking, which is in front of somebody else's house. You know, so I think we just. I'm concerned about the amount of traffic on our road anyway, which will increase with every house that's built. You know, the Matlock Green, Willersley is atrocious, you know, for the traffic. I mean, we had a meeting the other week about the traffic at the village hall, you know. So that's all I'm bothered about. It's obviously selfish reasons as a disabled though, you know, but there are a bigger picture than that, quite a bigger picture. You know, and I mean, the house that they wanted to knock down was built after we moved in. So it's only, I don't know, 40 years old or something like that. You know, so I'm afraid that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So finally, I ask the agent, Richard Piggott, please.
Another one, haven't we? Phil Muse.
Oh, sorry, Phil Muse. Do apologise, Mr. Muse. And again, you're going to speak against this application. So we will listen with care with what you've got to say, and you've got 3 minutes. The speaker's still on for you.
Thank you. It's just to object to the proposal. The proposed removal of 35 metres of street parking to accommodate the proposed development. This street is the street parking. Sorry, I've written this down. My handwriting's terrible.
Could you just speak up a bit, please, because I can't really hear you.
Okay. If removed, it's simply not just about inconvenience. It's there's nowhere else to park for the existing residents on Starkholmes Road next to the proposed development. So the question is not necessarily should it go, can it be removed? It's where will the people park if it is removed? Additional to that, once the existing dwelling is demolished to accommodate the road, once the existing dwelling is demolished to accommodate, I've lost my place. So, okay. The proposed development will be fully exposed to the road. My concern is that the proposed development would create negative light, noise and vehicle pollution due to the elevated position of the plot, which would negatively affect the neighbours' houses and be highly visible from the road below.
Thank you very much. It's a very hot night, isn't it? Not easy. So finally, the agent, please, who's got 5 minutes, Richard Piggott, and you're obviously, Richard, speaking in support of the application. And that then concludes the speakers for this application.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this evening. The proposal is acceptable in principle, given the site's location on the edge of a Tier 1 settlement and the Council's lack of a 5-year housing land supply. Approving this application would result in 6 brand new homes, and Matlock is a Tier 1 settlement, meaning that there is no better place within the district to locate new homes. The social and economic benefits of new build housing are often referenced, but what does this actually mean in practice? Future residents will pay council tax, spend money in the shops, support local services, play their part in the local community and contribute to the overall vitality of the town. Clearly, there are constraints to be considered, but the same can be said for virtually every site in and around Matlock. I'm naturally disappointed with the recommendation, and having read the officer's report, I do feel that heritage impacts have been overstated. The site is within the buffer zone of the World Heritage Site rather than the heritage site itself. This means that development should be carefully designed rather than avoided altogether. We have worked tirelessly to design a scheme which respects its surroundings and will provide a fitting addition to the area. The development is purposely low density, and we are committed to retaining the open spaces around the western and northern edges of the site in order to ensure an attractive form of development with a soft edge. Much
of the adjacent housing on the western side of Starkholmes Road is similarly placed on the hillside, such that this development would not look out of place. The site is not within the registered park and garden, and for similar reasons, I do not consider that the development will harm its setting. Finally, I will conclude on heritage by pointing out that the council's own conservation officer has not raised any objection. The Highway Authority's position is that further information is required, despite repeated attempts to address all concerns raised during the application. Starkholmes Road is a 30-mile-an-hour road with existing on-street parking, residential movements and constrained vehicle manoeuvres already forming part of the day-to-day operation of the highway. The scheme would remove 6 existing unallocated on-street parking spaces and replace them with 6 off-street spaces within the site. The existing on-street spaces are not allocated to individual properties. The replacement spaces are intended to serve the same function, and these parking spaces will be available to those who currently rely on the on-street provision. In highway terms, moving parked vehicles off the adopted highway and into off-street spaces should be considered a benefit. It reduces pressure on the highway and will improve the operation of Starkholmes Road. These 6 spaces will be part of a management company's remit alongside the landscaped areas retained within the site. The Highway Authority is also concerned that larger vehicles may need to cross the centre line when entering or leaving the site. In practical terms, this form of manoeuvre is not unusual on local roads, particularly where refuse, delivery and emergency vehicles access small residential sites or private drives. The Manual for Streets Highways guidance does not require footways on private shared drives serving small numbers of dwellings. Due to the limited scale of the development, it is not expected that there will be significant pedestrian movements, and so the proposed footways are therefore considered to be more than adequate. The site will be served by an unadopted private drive, and the internal visibility will not impact the safety or function of the wider adopted highway network. Nevertheless, for 6 bungalows on a private drive, vehicle speeds would be very low, and the environment would be materially different from the public highway. Adequate space has been provided for turning and manoeuvring. Just in relation to neighbouring properties and the comment raised by the lady at number 70, it is my understanding that whilst this property does have a side-facing window overlooking the existing front driveway, this has only recently been enlarged, and again, I understand that it is not the main window serving that particular room. I would also like to clarify that the disabled bay, which has also been referenced in the neighbouring comments, would not be removed. That is beyond the visibility display that's proposed. So in summary, the outstanding highway matters relating to technical design details are all matters that can be reasonably addressed by suitably worded planning conditions. For all of the above reasons, I ask you to recognise the opportunity provided by this site to deliver an attractive addition to Starkholmes and contribute to the vitality and vibrancy of Matlock.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
listening.
That's over time, so thank you very much, Richard. So I'll ask the case officer, please, to lead members through the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application at 66 Starkholmes Road in Matlock. It's an outline planning application, but the only reserved matter here is for appearance. So the detailed appearance of the bungalow. All other
Gina,
matters are being.
Could you just move the microphone a bit closer to you?
Yeah. So that I'll start that again. So it's it's an application in outline form. The only reserved matter is for appearance, so the final detail of the bungalows, and the existing dwelling will be demolished as part of the application as well. 6 bungalows are proposed. The bungalows are to have 3 bedrooms, and there will be 2 off-road parking spaces per dwelling. An off-road parking provision in the form of 6 public parking spaces is also to be provided on site, seeking to replace the existing parking bay to the south of the access point. Although the principal development in this location is supported by policy due to its sustainable location on the edge of Matlock and partially in the Matlock settlement, we feel that insufficient information has been submitted within the application to demonstrate that development will not have an unacceptable impact on highway safety in its current submission, and that insufficient information has been provided to demonstrate that the proposal will not result in an unacceptable level of harm to the historic environment. So 2 reasons for refusal. First, highways, insufficient information, and then insufficient information in terms of its impact on setting of heritage assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Questions? Councillor
Please, me.
Hughes and then Councillor Burfoot. David?
You read my mind, Chair. I've got 2 really. I mean, one is about the insufficient evidence of about highway safety. What concerns are you holding about highway safety?
From highways, I've got the outstanding issues to be that there's some visibility information for the site access that still needs to be provided. Refuse delivery and fire vehicles would need to cross into the opposing lane.
Okay.
So that's another comment they've made. That they've said that the proposal removes approximately 35 metres of existing parallel parking. And they don't feel that the replacement within the site of 6 public parking spaces is sufficient to outnumber that loss. There is uncertainty over how replacement parking would be managed and protected for existing residents. Some parking spaces have restricted manoeuvring space and potentially poor visibility because of retaining walls, and that some additional visibility display information is yet to be provided. So there is a mix of some technical detail I think they still were wishing to see in terms of displays and things, but also in terms of what's proposed with replacement parking spaces and some of the conditions of vehicles getting on and off site. They don't feel it demonstrates that it won't have a highway safety impact.
Thank you. On the second objection, the unacceptable level of harm, is that to the pleasure gardens or is that to the Cromford Mills?
I've got that it's more to do with the impact on High Tor, so the pleasure garden.
Yeah.
So the impact of the development on the Derwent Valley Mills WHS is more so how it's going to impact it. Don't feel like sufficient information has been provided in terms of how that impacts or how that's going to be screened. But the concerns with the High Tor were raised by the Gardens Trust. They think the impact on vegetation that screens the development, which will provide, will prove less efficient, in the winter to screen the site from High Tor. So even though there's existing vegetation, we feel that will be not as, I suppose, efficient as it currently is for one dwelling compared to the 6 on the High Tor registered park and garden. And say there is some concerns with Historic England as well, just wanting to keep it existing building on site, which is I believe to be they're seeking to retain anyway. So I think say the concerns are more about, I suppose, insufficient information, but also whether that screening would still be efficient to High Tor in terms of how the Garden Trust feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. I think there are my questions about issues that have been highlighted in the report and by the speakers that we've heard from tonight, and I'm wondering how much weight has been given and can be given to these issues that I'm raising. Do you want them one by one, Gina?
Yes.
Yeah. So there seems to be a discrepancy about how many parking spaces we're going to lose on the road. Am I correct that that's, well, I'm not really sure how many we're going to lose on the road. We're getting 6 proposed on the as part of the application under a management company. Could you just confirm exactly how many parking spaces on the road we're going to lose? Because I know Starcombs very well, and I know that they're really important, these parking spaces.
Yeah. think more so in the report it's referred to as 35 metres of on road parking, parallel parking. Let me see if I can.
I think that's part of the problem and why the application is recommended for refusal.
Right.
There is a lack of clarity on
Okay.
on basically all the matters you've identified, which
Yeah.
is why it's being recommended
Yeah.
for refusal.
I haven't finished yet.
Okay.
So, just thinking about the, how much weight can we put onto the loss of these established trees on the road? How much weight can we give to the loss of this disabled parking bay, which is quite rightly outside number 78, which is where it needs to be? Do you want to answer those first? Because I do think they are important issues.
Yeah, I think it's the information we're just saying it's insufficient for us to truly know the current existing situation. So it's very difficult for highways to be able to demonstrate if there's any mitigation possible or anything like that without knowing the full details. So I think that's quite that's the first reason for refusal. And we don't know its impact on highway safety.
I mean, I think another issue that I wanted to just bring up in the form of a question is, have we considered the loss of amenity to Sonia Glibbin's side elevation, which, she quite rightly, as she's got the perfect right to have that window as it is now. We saw that on site.
Yeah, if those could go up, please, because not everyone was on the site visit yesterday, Gina. Can I bring in Councillor John Point? And John, you've indicated you'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, I get the impression that this development could be looked on favourably, but we don't have enough information to satisfy all the aspects of it. So, two quick questions really. I'm curious as to why this has come to planning when matters haven't been settled, and from what I can understand, these are things that could go for further discussion to resolve, and in which case can we defer this then for that to be done?
Chair, my understanding from talking to the case officer is that these matters have been raised with the applicant, and the applicant has basically doesn't agree that these are valid concerns. They believe they've submitted the necessary information, and they would like the application determined. That's my understanding, and on that basis, officers have that we remain unsatisfied that these matters have been satisfactorily addressed. Therefore, the recommendation has been taken to committee. Just to bring a conclusion to the matter, basically.
So,
yes, thank you.
Councillor Dermot Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. A little bit of confusion. Obviously, one of the speakers told us that the disabled parking bay is going to be removed. Then I thought I heard the agent saying that it wasn't going to be removed. Could we have some clarification over that, please?
I think this is part of the reason why we're recommending refusal. There's a lot of loose ends, matters that aren't clarified that need to be, and it's why the recommendation is as it is, because there simply isn't information there to determine the application acceptably. It's not that unusual for an application to be refused on lack of information. It does happen from time to time where there is essentially a disagreement between what level of information the applicant thinks is required and what level of information the local authority believes is required to satisfactorily assess the application.
You believe that deferral is the way forward this application?
Not if officers felt that this information would be forthcoming, officers would not have taken this item to planning committee.
Finally, ask Councillor David Hughes, because I think we could go around in circles. We've got a recommendation before us. Either members are in sympathy with that for planning reasons or not. So, David, you'll be the final question.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was going to move that we officers' recommendations on this, if I can. On the basis that this application has been sitting around in planning for a long period of time, and there's plenty of time for the applicant to come back with the information required. I think it was at the end of last year when I first saw this one, and so when applicants don't work with the planning authority, then it seems that we can't do anything about it. We have to do it on the evidence that's available in front of us. The evidence is that there are issues about highways, and there are issues about whether or not the application will interfere with the pleasure gardens on High Tor, and potentially even, according to English Heritage, on the Cromford Mills World Heritage Site. So I move that I move officers' recommendations and that we refuse this application on the two grounds stated.
Thank you, David. And Councillor Burfoot.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second that. I think the officers have got this absolutely right, and we've got sufficient reasons tonight to go ahead with a refusal.
Thank you. I'm having a senior moment.
Butcher.
Councillor Butcher. I was going to say the Labour guy. Councillor Butcher.
That'll do. That'll do.
So, sorry, Councillor Butcher.
I'm going to speak for Peter Slack.
Yeah, speak for both.
All I wanted to say is I completely agree, but we haven't had mention yet of the surface water runoff and the concern about that, and I just didn't want it overlooked because it hadn't been mentioned. It seems to be one of the things that there's insufficient information about, and I wanted it noted in the debate. That's all.
Thank you, Bob.
Is it in the highways reason for
Yeah,
refusal?
it's in it.
Yes, yes, it is a concern. I've put it in my drainage section of my notes, but although there's no sort of comments or issues from the LLFA or EA in terms of flooding, there is concerns from the Highways Authority about with surface water drainage runoff would come from the site. Obviously, it's a sloped site, so again, some information we would need to know what's going to happen, if it was to be developed. So that's been included in the reason for refusal.
Are you okay with that, Bob? Yeah. So we do have a recommendation before us that the application be refused as outlined by the officer. All those in favour of refusal, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. There are no members against, so that is unanimous, John. So we're going to move to the final application, which was our final site visit yesterday, pertaining Derwent Treescapes, the Cliff, Matlock, Derbyshire. But we have some late representation. So again, if members just for a few moments have a look at these comments, please. just before we proceed then to carry on with this business, can the committee clerk please note that Councillor Burfoot did leave the council chamber and took no part in any discussion pertaining this application. Thank you, John. So I'll finally call upon Richard Piggott, the agent, please, to speak in support of the application. And again, Richard, as you know, you've got 5 minutes.
I'll try and be quicker this time. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your time this evening and for considering this application. Your officers have carefully assessed the proposal against both local and national planning policy and have reached a clear recommendation that planning permission should be granted subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement. To reach this point, a positive and constructive approach was taken by both the applicant and the council throughout the application process, with the applicant providing additional information following receipt of statutory consultation responses. This primarily included additional highway work to provide more certainty regarding visibility and access and parking. As a result of this collaborative process, there are no objections from any statutory consultee. Regarding planning policy, it is accepted that the site lies outside the defined settlement boundary. However, there are a number of significant material considerations which weigh heavily in favour of the proposal. First and foremost is housing delivery, in light of the council's housing land supply shortfall. In that context, the provision of 5 new homes will make a positive contribution towards addressing the housing shortfall within the district. The proposal also delivers 5 self-build plots at a time when the council's own evidence identifies a deficit of 69 self-build plots. This development therefore directly addresses a recognised local housing need and provides opportunities for local people wishing to design and build their own homes. Third, this is a previously developed brownfield site that is underused and surplus to the operational requirements of the existing business, Derwent Treescapes. Rather than extending into open countryside, the proposal brings a redundant area of brownfield land back into productive use. Members should also give weight to the visual and environmental improvements that will result. The site currently contains areas of storage associated with the commercial operation. The redevelopment will replace this with a carefully planned residential scheme that retains the extensive woodland setting, secures replacement planting, delivers biodiversity enhancements, and creates a more attractive and coherent appearance. In summary, while the site sits outside the settlement boundary, a balanced assessment against the substantial benefits should be made. In this instance, the delivery of much needed housing, support for self-build provision, the reuse of what should be classified as brownfield land, ecological enhancements, and significant visual improvements tip the balance firmly in favour of approving the application. For these reasons, I respectfully ask members to support the officer recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And I feel at this point we want to just thank the applicants for patiently sweating it out. So I do apologise, but it's a rough night for all of us. Okay, Gina, if you'd like to, sorry, Rosie.
We're taking it in turns tonight, thanks, Chair. So this application is application 25000897. It's got an. Oh, sorry. We're on the wrong one.
You're on the wrong one.
395. Sorry, 25003954. It's actually a hybrid application, which is quite unusual. It's a mix of full planning application and outline. So it's full. It's a full application for one of the dwellings, and then it's outline for the other 4. So members visited the site yesterday, so got an understanding of the site and its surrounding. It's obviously a very hilly site with very steep land levels, and you'll have noted the access of Deep Carl Lane and that there's a public footpath along that road as well. So let's go back to the that one to keep it there. This is the site layout plan for the development. So it's only plot 1, the larger of the properties, which is seeking full planning permission. The others, it's outline, and these are all self-build dwellings. So there's an expectation that the owners would have input into the design of those other dwellings. Due to the hilly nature of the site, there's a need for some retaining walls around the site. There's also a attenuation pond on the layout plan, you'll note. So in terms of plot 1, this is the elevation of plot 1. So that's the only one we have the detail for. So this is a 4-bedroom, 2-storey property. Its materials would be stone walls with dark grey aluminium windows and doors and dark grey metal standing seam roof. For the other plots, we've just got outline of what they'd essentially be 3-bedroom properties, but the remainder of the application would need reserve matters submission, albeit there's only 2 matters that need to be approved when a reserve matters comes in. That would be the external appearance of the landscaping. So you'd be approving the siting of where these other 4 dwellings are tonight. So the issues that need to be considered is development acceptable in this location. It's outside settlement boundaries, but it's very close to the settlement boundary of Matlock. Obviously, as you're fully aware, we do not have a 5-year housing land supply at the moment, so that would contribute to these 5 dwellings would contribute towards that. We will also have a need for some self-build plots. Highway safety, the application's been with us a while, but there was a bit of back and forth with the Highway Authority about getting the right visibility displays. They're now satisfied with those and have recommended conditions. And the design, obviously it's a steep site, so it's got a 1 in 12 gradient. Highways are satisfied with that. Yeah, there'll need to be reserve matters for the other plots 2 to 5 about their external appearance and landscaping. So condition to note probably is condition 4, which requires the self-build purchasers to have input into the design. Condition 6 removes PD rights. Condition 8 also limits the height of the dwelling, so it wouldn't be more than 2-storey. There's also conditions relating to drainage and highway visibility displays, construction management plan, and hours of working. So the recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Rosie. Councillor Lees, then Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of a technical issue. I notice on the application it says Case Officer Asbury Planning, applicant Mr Adam Rutland and agent Mr Richard Peach. I think that's incorrect. Could you just clarify, please?
Yes, I did put an update note on the late reps that was picked up, that it had got yourself down as a Matlock councillor when clearly it should be Councillor Fitter, Linthwaite and Hughes there, and also the applicant was down as the agent, so that will be amended for the minutes.
Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Rosie, I noticed when we access the drive, the bus scraped the bottom very badly, and there's got to be a lot of work on the access, hasn't there? It's got to be more evened out so we don't get that and widened. Is that correct? Should be. It still have to be.
Yes, the plans show a 1 in 12. I'm not sure what the gradient is now, but clearly there'd be a lot of levelling, and for the actual property, there's going to be retaining walls around the plots. There is a section on one of those.
My second question is, being this going to be self-built, the first one, but the other, is it term limit on the other coming later or not? So because self-build's going to take a lot longer than normal.
So the self-build, the full planning permission is for a self-build, so that would be granted for 3 years. But also the other 4 units, they need to submit a reserve matters application, so they'll have 3 years to submit that, then 2 years to implement reserve matters.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, you've got an officer recommendation before you for consent. Stuart, are you prepared to move that?
Yes, Chair, prepared to move it as officers' recommendations. Thank you.
Does that find a second? Councillor Slack, thank you, Peter. There's no further comments. All those in favour that the application receives consent, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. Thank you very much, members. So if we can bring back Councillor Burfoot, please, from Exile. I think we'll be almost there now, to be honest. It's not, well, I'll be surprised because we're just doing progress. And then that's it. Yeah. Yeah. As I say, thank you to the applicants for your patience, but I hope you feel it's been worthwhile. So the next application has been withdrawn, and we move then to the appeals progress report, pages 131 to 162, and lots of interesting things there. Do any members wish to make comments or ask any questions? John.
Yes, Chair. I just want to comment on the one at Doveridge, which has shown us the appeal being processed. My understanding is that that's now been dealt with and the appeal's been dismissed.
Thank you very much for that information. Has that got back to you? Yeah, lovely. There are no further comments, then I would ask someone to move that the report be noted. So it's been moved by Councillor Murphy and seconded by Councillor Dobbs. All those in favour, please show. And that appears to be unanimous. Thank you. And I think that does conclude tonight's meeting. I thank members for the patience.
Safe journey home.
Safe journey home. Yeah.